Before I bring in Tatiana, those are very, very, interesting and strong words you've used. But does that, Ariel Cohen best describe the situation right now? Plain speak, and truth that comes both from President Trump and from Vice President J.D. Vance. There is no way Ukraine can win this. Tatiana, give me 30 seconds. I'll come to you immediately after Ariel Cohen. President Zelenskyy perhaps should have realized if Trump wants that deal, and he spoke of it, America has oil, America has gas, America does not have rare earth minerals. If that deal could have come, guarantees would have automatically followed with American soldiers or American civilians and workers on ground. Russia clearly couldn't have attacked, except that would also mean, Mr. Cohen, losing Zaporozhye and Kherson apart from Donetsk and Luhansk.
No, of course, a lot of these rare earth minerals and strategic minerals, which is a different story because strategic are lithium and aluminum and uranium and copper and chromium and all the things that are not rare earth per se. But the question is, you're asking absolutely right. Was Zelenskyy in a position to sell the United States Ukrainian minerals that are now under the Russian occupation? And I don't think anybody is that silly. But there was another aspect there. The total market, the global market of rare earth, of the lanthanoids that are used in aerospace and computers and semiconductors, $3.5 billion. Yes. Trump is saying, oh, we gave you $350 billion. It probably he exaggerates by a factor of 2. But regardless, 65% of mining, 85% of refining are in China, not in Ukraine, not in America. Yes. So what? It would have taken 500 years for the United States to recoup these investments and support in Ukraine. What are we talking about here? So my argument is either it was a huge mistake by Zelenskyy, and with all the respect to the professor, I would not call him a clown. He got elected. He conducted the war. He is a leader of his people. He's still very popular in Ukraine, by the way. And he is an embattled, elected leader. In terms of President Trump, he has a very different view of American foreign policy than anybody since the end of World War II until the end of the Biden presidency. He does not see the Euro-Atlantic alliance as the core need and the core pillar of American security. In that respect, he's somewhat of an isolationist, and there's a lot of people who are China hawks who say, let the Europeans take care of themselves. We need to focus on Indo-Pacific and China, and this is where India is so important for the United States.
Oh, you're absolutely right, and that's why we've been focusing to a very large extent on the Indo-Pacific and on China. That's the real expansionism and threat that the world faces. Did Biden go wrong there? We'll talk about that in just a moment. But Tatiana, has Kremlin already popped the bubbly? Is President Putin celebrating already?
Well, Gaurav, I think that President Putin, I'm not assuming that he's awake at 6:30 in the morning. Let me just also say that I have to commend this historic moment. I believe the only time I actually gave commentary this early was the 24th of February, 2022. Yes. So that is quite something. Look, first of all, to comment on something that Mr. Cohen has said, I believe that Zelenskyy came there to sell minerals that only exist in the Donbass region. That's actually not correct. There are some there are things that they could have still signed for, because there are minerals in the Dnepropetrovsk region as well, and there could have been something that he could have technically gone for. But to keeping this in mind, it takes a very inadequate person to come in without any sort of leverage, to come in to beg for your supper, and to do it in a way that Vladimir Zelensky did it. I mean, the sense of entitlement that this man possesses is just astounding. It has been astounding to me for years now, you know, this sense of that, look, you are obliged to help me. You are obliged to rescue me. You're obliged to pay for this. And, you know, having listened to Donald Trump for even the first 4 years of his presidency, it was very clear that, you know, he is first and foremost, again, he's a businessman. He's a very rich man. And very rich men don't like their staff basically to misbehave and to talk to them as equals. So we will see what comes out of the next round, and especially when President Putin and President Trump speak. But I dare say that what President Zelensky did yesterday might have made that moment that much closer, actually.
So is this the end of the war, Sushant Sareen? Do you look at it as the war coming to a close? Because both J.D. Vance and President Trump very clearly told President Zelensky, you're not winning this war. You'll come out okay only if you sign a deal. So that's the best case scenario for you. But Europe, and you spoke of countries with an army of just 1,000 in Europe saying that we stand with President Zelensky and Ukraine. But so does Canada, so does France. You heard what Emmanuel Macron said. You heard what Spain's Pedro Sanchez said. We've heard what Justin Trudeau in Canada have said. What does this mean? Is NATO dead?
So look, I don't think NATO is dead as yet, but I think maybe it's gasping for breath. But look, wars are not going to end simply because one side is losing the war. It depends. Wars are ultimately calculations in the minds of people. Now, I think the calculation in the Trump administration's mind is that this war is not going the way it should go. So it's better to end it here. When you still can retrieve something from this conflict. Otherwise, who knows what direction it will head into. I also sense a certain amount of fatigue, especially in the current US administration, to keep funding this kind of a war because it distracts the Americans from certain other priorities which they might be setting for themselves. Now, that can be a matter of debate, and that's a debate Americans need to have among themselves, what their priority should be. Should it be Russia, which simply does not pose a similar kind of a threat either to Europe or to the US, as probably China does in a strategic sense in the next 20, 30, 50 years, right?
Yes.
But that's a calculation these guys have to make, not us. We will have to deal with China. We will have to deal with the world as is. And for the Westerners to imagine that, the entire global security architecture rests on there being this transatlantic alliance of theirs, I think they are mistaking the rest of the world for the West, which clearly is not the case. The other thing is, do the Europeans really have the stomach for a fight? It's one thing to say, okay, fine, we are going to give weapons to the Ukrainians, let them go and fight, we'll give them money, we'll take some of their refugees, let them go and fight and die for us. Will they have the stomach to send their own soldiers in? Will they have stomach to send their own armies in? Will Norway or Finland or all of these countries which are acting as though they are some kind of world leaders, will they have the stomach to fight this war? We have seen what happened in Afghanistan.
Yes.
There were these much wanted European armies would start crying the moment they had to fire shots and they saw their
body bags come in.
Soldiers die. So let's not kid ourselves on what the Europeans can or cannot do. But if Zelensky wants to fight to the end, I don't see how anybody can stop him. That's up to them.